So your journey to WrestleMania here 13 really begins at the Royal Rumble. You and Terry Funk are going to brawl with each other out of the ring, which distracts the referees and helps Steve end up winning the Royal Rumble. And you're doing this in San Antonio, wrestling against your wrestling mentor in a huge freaking dome. That had to be a cool moment for you.
The crazy thing is, you can only remember a certain amount of things.
Right.
I think we've covered this before. You tend to remember the things that went really well, the things that were really bad. This is an indication that this fell somewhere in the middle for me, because I remember every moment of the next year, which is the 3 entries.
Yes.
And I remember starting out the match with Terry Funk and then, doing a number on The Rock, who somehow, to this day, I don't know, I believe he rolled between the second and third ropes with the garbage can on his head, which means he had to intuitively know where the ropes were.
Yes.
So you can go back and maybe my memory's off, but I remember The Rock doing some amazing stuff with a garbage can on his head and no visibility. So he was a phenom in that way, knowing his way around the ring. The year before, I cannot really remember that I was in there with Terry. I don't have that big of a recollection at all of being in that Rumble, even though it was my first Rumble, and I should. And it was in San Antonio, and that's when
huge
Sid,
crowd.
Yeah, huge, 48,000, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
That was Sid and Sean,
Yes.
because San Antonio is Sean's hometown. But I wish I did. I know, when Steve won that thing, that's what everybody wanted to see.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Steve's character was really catching fire at that point, and we'd see that pay off at WrestleMania in a huge way, but I don't remember too much about being part of it.
So
Is this where I should creatively pretend I do?
No.
Okay.
I mean, here's the thing. That's what I wanted to talk about. Is it doesn't feel like your creative is really that great here. You debuted right after WrestleMania 12, and you had this awesome feud right out of the gate with The Undertaker, and now as we get geared up for what looks like WrestleMania season, it's kind of hard to identify who's your opponent going to be. And I wonder how much of that in your mind changes when Shawn lost his smile. Like if WrestleMania 13 was going to go on the way maybe we originally thought, it's going to be a rematch from 12 with Bret and Shawn. Do you think that would have changed what you were doing? Would that have meant more with The Undertaker? Because clearly when everything changes, it becomes Undertaker Sid and it becomes Bret and Austin. And we know how it worked out, but I can't imagine you were supposed to be tagging with Vader to take on Bret and Owen, and or Davey and Owen. It feels like something changed. Would you agree?
Yeah. Keep in mind, WWE's always booked around their top 2 or 3 matches.
Of course.
Even at Mania. And then you try to get people in some meaningful matches. And I had a great run with Undertaker, working at or near the top of the card. But up until the famous interview with JR, the sit-down interview, I think, which was April 2017, I hadn't quite captured Vince.
I got you.
He appreciated that I was somebody who was valuable. I mean, I think that can be illustrated by the Montreal screw job, where even after he took the punch from Bret and I decided to leave the company for a day, when I got off the phone with my wife, there was a message and it was Vince. It's like, wow, he thinks enough of me to call me after this traumatic ordeal. And then I was welcomed back into the fold after my wife perused my contract, found out that I basically breached it. Couldn't work anywhere in the world for 5 years, at which point, if I could have gotten to Messina, New York on my hands and knees, I probably would have done it. But I was accepted back into the fold with no questions asked. But even that was 4 or 5 months before that interview that changed everything. So I don't think Vince was fully on board with the Mankind character or with me as the man behind it. I do appreciate they were trying to make me fit me into the mix, but I'd say creative had been lacking a little bit. But at the same time than lacking, I'd been working house shows with Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, so I guess just to add context, I mean, the thing that I think oftentimes gets sort of glossed over, Paul Bearer separating from The Undertaker to be with you can't be overstated what a milestone that was.
Yeah.
They had never seen it before.
Right.
And that's August. So then the next month, you're in the freaking main event against Shawn Michaels in Philadelphia. And then there's the crazy Buried Alive thing in October. But then it starts to feel like as we march through a few months, it's like, okay, now what? You're looking for the next big thing.
I literally started I did my angle with The Undertaker the day after Mania, say April 1st.
Yeah.
So, don't know, but within a couple days.
Right.
And so we worked that angle to the point where I had my first pay-per-view match at King of the Ring. That was Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
And beat him.
Beat him. Came back against Henry Godwin, I think, in Vancouver the next month. Then I had the August Boiler Room Brawl.
Huge.
With Undertaker. And I don't know if technically I won, but I walked away the winner. I believe I did.
You walked away with Paul Bearer.
Yeah, you have to get the urn, and he didn't get the urn. I did. So I was 2-0 on pay-per-views, which for you trivia enthusiasts out there were the only 2 victories I ever scored over The Undertaker. If I had 100 matches, so we like to exaggerate the number, I'd say I had close to 100 matches. In this business, we tend to exaggerate.
Sure.
Because we believe it in our head. But I believe I had 100 matches or so, and my record was 2-98. But those were the 2 that counted.
They did.
So that takes us into now September. We've got Mind Games with Shawn. October, Buried Alive. November, I work with Undertaker again.
And MSG this time.
MSG. And now that's run its course.
Yes.
So now I'm on the road in December, January, working house shows with the champion and doing my best to tear it down with a champion who's injured, beaten up. I guess in the long scheme of things, beginning to lose his smile. But we were having some very good matches with 2 guys who were really banged up, really hurting, and finding a way to have very good matches around the loop. So it wasn't like I was out of the loop, but they were at a loss, I think, for creative for me moving forward.